It's the Rob Carson Show. Are you ready to be podsmacked? Now, here's Rob Carson.
Episode number 116 of the Rob Carson Show podcast. Hello, and welcome to the show. Wow, been a busy week or so. I was on WLS in Chicago for an entire week for Surratt and Murciano. That was really, really fun. Also, I might mention a dream come true, because WLS is what I think the greatest radio station in the history of mankind. Nothing against other radio stations. There are a lot of great radio stations. I grew up listening to it, and it's a big deal to me. So that was fun. Was on BAP in Dallas also. That was a lot of fun. And again, great radio station. Great reaction from listeners on both stations. And now I'm back. I'm back rocking the podcast. I want to welcome the sponsors before we get into everything, and there's news of the day we want to get into. We'll get into a little bit about Meghan Kelly and Alex Jones, play a little audio, and then also talk about how the network's really, really regretting having her $15 million contract. It's not, maybe not a good idea. Regrets. Fountain of Life Chiropractic can take care of a lot of problems with your body. They can take care of low back pain, shoulder pain, carpal tunnel, neuropathy, hip pain, knee pain. They take care of first responders and athletes. They can take care of you. Decompression for herniated lower back discs. That is really bad. I mean, it's been debilitating for me, debilitating for my wife, and chiropractic works. FountainOfLifeChiro.com. FountainOfLifeChiro.com. 8335 North Congress Avenue in Kansas City. 816-741-4711. 816-741-4711. Also, Grass Monsters KC, home of two spectacular American-made mowers, the Dixie Chopper, made in Indiana, and the Hustler, made in Kansas. American-made, zero-turning radius. They have the models where you can stand on the back. They have the ones where you can sit in the commercial and their residential, either one. A variety of models with unbelievable warranties and unbelievable craftsmanship. 5520 Raytown Road, Raytown Mo. Or you can go to grassmonsterskc.com, grassmonsterskc.com. I do want to mention the death of a North American college student, Otto Warmbier, was arrested in North Korea during a sightseeing tour last year. He's been in detention for 17 months. 17 months. He was returned in essentially a vegetative state and just passed away. Here is the story from CNN.
The family says when he arrived in Cincinnati last week in a vegetative state, Warmbier's face looked anguished. But within a day, they say, his face changed. He was at peace, they say. Warmbier's doctors told reporters they'd discovered he had lost much of his brain tissue due to cardiopulmonary arrest, and that 2 brain scans sent by the North Koreans suggested he'd been in a vegetative state for at least 14 months.
So he was in jail for 17 months. This happened not soon after he was imprisoned.
The earliest images are dated April 2016. Based upon our analysis of those images, the brain injury likely occurred in the preceding weeks.
Experts say while they're surprised North Korea would allow an American being held to reach such critical condition, they say mistreatment in North Korean jails is not uncommon.
We know that they apply very brutal treatment, torture, beating, rape to their own people, and also to foreigners who are held in custody.
All of a sudden, he was thrown into this hellhole. So anything is possible. He could have suffered shock when he was sentenced to hard labor. He could have been beaten. He could have tried to take his own life. Whatever the circumstances, it is likely the result of the fact that the North Koreans put him in this situation.
They murdered him. They murdered him. That's what happened. They murdered him. The tour that Otto took into North Korea, Young Pioneer Tours, is a Beijing-based company. They're going to stop taking U.S. citizens on tours to the country. All right, so they're going to stop that. 2 other tours that cater to Western tourists wanting to visit North Korea, Kori Tours and Yuri Tours, said they're reviewing whether to keep offering their services to Americans. Here's the deal. The State Department says, no, you can't go. The State Department says, no, you can't go. The State Department applies severe economic pressure to China. The United States continues to keep a strong presence in the Korean Peninsula. No more visits. It cannot happen. They must be cut off. They are killers. It's sickening that there are places like this. What's even more sickening is that some people want to go there. And I say that the State Department says, no, you don't go. You can't go. If you decide you want to and you want to illegally go, then you're on your own. Then you're on your own. This kid was a dumb college student. He was staying in a hotel, and he took a poster. Okay, he took a poster as a prank. This was a college student thing, okay? He didn't deserve to die for it. Just sickening. I don't know if you heard about this. The Supreme Court affirmed a court of appeals prohibiting or holding that a law prohibiting disparaging trademarks violates the First Amendment. Now, let me just try to simplify this. Supreme Court, and I don't know why this went to the Supreme Court. There was a band that wanted to trademark the name, the Slants. All right, and this is meant to make fun of the Asian stereotype, slant eyes, which they used, I think, in the 40s when we were fighting World War II. Anyway, these are a bunch of Asian guys, and they wanted to own the insult. And I think it's great. You take the insult, you own the insult, and then it takes away its power. So they ended up going to the Supreme Court to get their name, the Slants. And the Supreme Court said, okay, yeah, this is an old law that violates disparaging trademarks. And by the way, the vernacular changes over the years, and I believe this law is 76 years old. This is going to change trademark infringement cases like the one going after the Washington Redskins, because that's how people who are offended by Redskins are going about getting the Washington Redskins to change their name. Political pressure, standing outside of the stadium, et cetera, not working. So they're trying to go after the Washington Redskins with an offensive trademark, and guess what? They're going to be able to keep the Washington Redskins. All right, they're going to keep it. So NBC is freaking out over Meghan Kelly. She's turned out to be a ratings disaster. Now, listen, it's easy to become a vulture on someone when they do a faceplant. That's not my goal here. I have nothing against Meghan Kelly. She's good at what she does, I guess. I've just never been a huge fan of hers. But she apparently is suffering greatly. Her latest show, which featured the Alex Jones, I mean, okay. I guess the lure of his massive amounts of downloads of his YouTube channel was the deal. And I'm going to share some audio with you in a second because it's amazing how many people watch his stuff. And I would say that he's crazy, like a fox. I would say that he's a manic person. There's something wrong with him, but he's also really smart. He's tapped into what the nightly news does. Fear and paranoia. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's what the news does. Fear and paranoia. If it bleeds, it leads. Alex Jones has taken it a step further to attract even more crazies. So we'll get to this on the audio in a second. But it looks like her show's been just getting clobbered. Her interview with Aaron Andrews was destroyed by 60 Minutes. Apparently, this Alex Jones interview was beaten by a rerun of America's Funniest Home Videos. Apparently, a CNN or NBC executive has said they made a fundamental mistake about Meghan, which they think she's a superstar. What she is a cable star, and that is a very different solar system, according to this person. While promoting her show, Kelly told numerous outlets that she felt like she was born to be a mainstream media star. She says, I'm a combination of Mike Wallace, Oprah Winfrey, Larry the Cable Guy. Maybe not so much. Apparently, NBC executives are already realizing that people are not tuning into Meghan Kelly. And to me, it would have been fairly obvious why not to pursue a long-form interview with Alex Jones on NBC, of all places, because NBC's audience is not Alex Jones' audience. You know what I mean? Just not. Let's introduce you to a few sound bites from the interview with Alex Jones and Meghan Kelly. This about the Manchester bombing of the concert.
I love in Manchester.
Alex Jones was nearly 5,000 miles away from Manchester, England, when a suicide bomber killed 22 people at a concert less than 4 weeks ago. Despite the distance and with few facts known, Jones did what he often does, jumped mouth first into controversy.
A big bomb goes off at a pop star's rock concert, bombing a bunch of liberal trendies.
You said it was a bunch of liberal trendies who were killed, the same people who are promoting open borders, bringing Islamists in.
Yes.
In response to which many people looked at the victims, many of whom were 15, 14. There was a little...
I know, I'm sorry I didn't blow them up. I know, but I did something bad, though.
No, that you would suggest that an 8-year-old, right? There was Safi Rose Rousseau.
I guess I don't understand why this interview was important to her. She pursued it doggedly. The only reason I'm talking about it is because I'm asking the question, why did she pursue it so doggedly? Why would you want this person on? Yes, he is an internet phenomenon, but what kind of people is he attracting? Here he is. One of the things that he's talked about on the show is that the Newtown elementary school massacre was a hoax.
Jones uses that money to spread his message, a message that has caused enormous pain.
What he has done is he has injected this sort of
enormous pain. She also needs to get over that lilting emotional delivery. It's like Ann Curry. It's just irritating.
Toxic paranoia into the mainstream of conservative thought in a way that would have been inconceivable a couple of decades ago. We're talking about somebody who traffics in some of the sickest, most offensive types of theories.
At the top of that list is Jones's outrageous statement that the slaughter of innocent children and teachers at Sandy Hook Elementary School, one of the darkest chapters in American history.
See, this goes, listen to her delivery. It's very different than her show on Fox, which was successful. Tucker Carlson, I think, is beating her ratings. But this is a different, softer persona. It's different than what she had on Fox. I'm not saying that she was hardcore on Fox, but it just, to me, sounds false.
Was a hoax.
I lost my son. I buried my son. I held my son with a bullet hole through his head.
Neil Heslin's son Jesse, just 6 years old, was murdered, along with 19 of his classmates and 6 adults.
Yeah, again, to me personally, I think that her delivery is bothersome. I think her guest selection is as bothersome. There was another story that Alex Jones went after, and he does a lot of this. I had heard that one of the original ones was Bohemian Grove. I haven't had a chance to check it out yet. When I did my show on WPEAP in Dallas, I heard from a lot of original Alex Jones viewers, and they have since stopped watching him. But apparently they've been replaced by a lot of other people. You remember Pizzagate? Comet Ping Pong Pizza, whatever the heck it is in Washington, D.C., where Alex Jones said Democrats were bringing children in to be molested?
Everybody.
The consequences of Jones's actions are not limited to Sandy Hook.
Pizzagate, as it's called, is a rabbit hole that is horrifying to go down now.
In 2016, Jones promoted a conspiracy theory known as Pizzagate. InfoWars claimed a child sex ring was being run by Democrats out of a number of businesses, and specifically pointed to a Washington, D.C. pizzeria.
You got to go to Infowars.com and actually see the photos and videos inside these places.
Jones encouraged his listeners to investigate the case themselves. And one did, bringing a semi-automatic rifle to the shop and firing several rounds. No one was hurt, and the shooter was arrested. The pizza shop owner wrote a letter asking Jones to apologize. Facing the possibility of a lawsuit, he did.
We regret any negative impact. Our commentary.
Where's common sense? Where is common sense? One of the problems that I have is apparently the president listens to Alex Jones. That's really problematic. And I'm a supporter of this president. I think he's doing a pretty good job. But it was troubling to discover in this report that the president occasionally sounds off and responds to Alex Jones. Now, despite it all, his show continues to grow, and he's going to make a lot more money.
With the election of Donald Trump, Alex Jones has plans to expand InfoWars. More studios, more shows, more employees, more influence.
I said the 91, I said the war has just begun. So we just got a beachhead. And so that's just the start of the war for me.
And Alex Jones goes into battle with a powerful ally. Just 2 weeks ago, the Trump-Pence campaign emailed this message to supporters. Notice at the bottom, it's a link to InfoWars.
Okay. Again, her delivery is just, it's not her delivery. She's trying to be somebody that she isn't. That's just my opinion. I think she's trying to be somebody that she's not. And she was a little more harder edged. She's softened herself to do these emotive pieces. And I just don't think it's going to, work. And obviously with the, with the ratings that she's getting, that is the case. I've got a few stories that are interesting. Last week, you'll recall that Congressman Steve Scalise, one of the people who was shot at a baseball practice by congressional Republicans, by an unhinged guy who was a radical leftist, was spurred on by some of the anti-Trump, anti-Republican rhetoric that's going on out there, the protests, the late-night TV, the caterwauling from Democrat politicians who called for the president's impeachment even before he was sworn in, all of this stuff. He goes to the field. He asks a congressman, are these Republicans or Democrats? He leaves when he finds out the Republicans. He comes back with a gun and starts shooting people. Fortunately, he was a liberal, and he's a very bad shot. I don't know if you heard this, but Caitlyn Jenner made a joke about it, took a little heat for it. I got to tell you, that was one of the first things that I thought about. Who would you rather have shooting at you? Someone who is not a big fan of gun ownership, or someone who is a huge Second Amendment believer? And Caitlyn Jenner made the joke, and like I said, I thought it was pretty funny, but some people did not. Here's Caitlyn Jenner, who, by the way, was speaking at a Young Republicans meeting, I guess. Wow, you can't make this stuff up, because Caitlyn Jenner, a transsexual who used to be the greatest male athlete in the world, is speaking at a meeting of Young Republicans. This is just, wow, okay, cool. But Caitlyn Jenner made this joke, and I thought it was funny.
As far as the people that were injured, it's absolutely shame. We just want them to recover. Fortunately, the guy was a really bad shot, and liberals can't even shoot straight. I mean, it's...
Yeah. I didn't think that was distasteful at all. Fortunately, the person who did the shooting did not kill anyone. Ultimately, that person, who I'm not going to mention his name, was killed. Now, there's been some ugly rhetoric since then, and one of the things that I took from the event last week, and I covered it in real time on WLS, and the day following it, and I had hoped this would bring us together a little bit. Unfortunately, it hasn't. And if anything has happened, and I mean this in all sincerity, I try not to be mean on social media. I try not to do a mean show. But I made the analogy that Twitter, particularly Twitter, is like a vehicle and a person who has anger issues with road rage. Twitter is the same way. People shoot their mouths off without thinking. They say things that are insightful, mean, and then even to some degree dangerous. And that is, to me, the hate speech that we should worry about. But unfortunately, some people have said some pretty bad things. I'm going to get to Tucker Carlson. He had an interview with a Democrat strategist named Jim Devine, and this guy is, crackers. But here's Scott Pelley, late last week, essentially blaming it on the congressman.
It's time to ask whether the attack on the United States Congress yesterday was for...
Doesn't his delivery remind you of one of those stodgy old teachers like Mrs. Feldman in my 5th grade class, who, when you got in trouble, spoke down to you like this? Doesn't he sounds like a male version of Mrs. Feldman?
Seeable, predictable, and to some degree self-inflicted.
Okay. You can argue about where the vitriol is coming. I'll say it's coming from people who can't accept that Hillary Clinton lost the election. And they can't stand the idea that Donald Trump is a president. And we see it every week with another protest. We see it on campuses with protests, with conservative speakers being driven off the campus, with violent altercations, with things being set on fire. You know, that's not coming from the Republican Party. It's just not doing it. But Tucker Carlson took a Democrat strategist, Jim Devine, to task for basically saying after the shooting at the Alexandria ball field of Republicans that Democrats, leftists, should hunt Republicans.
So, Jim Devine, under what circumstances is it morally acceptable to use violence for...
And I pardon the quality of the audio, because Jim Devine's audio is a little bit rough, but you can hear it.
Political ends.
It's never acceptable to use violence for political ends, except perhaps in the most extreme cases, like referring to George Washington and those guys. The fact of the matter is we do with ballots in this country what they do with bullets elsewhere. And it is not uncommon in politics that we use the language of war. We talk about fierce rhetoric. We talk about crusades and so on. You were on a television program, and I don't know what your body count was when you were on Crossfire. I assume.
So he's saying that because the show's name is Crossfire and features both left and right, that would incite violence. Okay.
That there were no real casualties there. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody.
I mean, wait, stop. You know what? I want to have a reasonable conversation. I don't want to demagogue this. But in the hours after 5 people were shot, including the House Majority Whip, you sent out a tweet that said, hunt Republicans. I mean, it was clearly a reference to the assassination attempt against Congressman Scalise. It's hard to imagine.
Fairly cut and dried, wouldn't you say? But I want you to listen to how this guy weasels around it. This is remarkable. Tucker's been having some very, very strange interviews lately. I don't know where this guy crawled out from under, but this guy, this man is mentally a dangerous person.
How you could justify writing something like that?
In the immediate aftermath of the shooting at the Sandy Hook school, we've heard people say this is not the time to talk about gun violence. We've heard lots of things follow this. You know, this.
Okay, that wasn't inciting violence. That was a reaction right after the event happened. People crying for gun control. The same thing that Terry McAuliffe, the governor of the state of Virginia, did literally hours after the shooting at the baseball park.
No, but that's not what you were saying. You were encouraging gun violence. Wait, hold on.
Absolutely not.
You were encouraging gun violence.
How could you say that you're not encouraging gun violence by saying hunt a human being?
Absolutely not.
Or a group of human beings.
You wrote hunt Republicans. What do you mean by that? Put down that paper. I'm talking about you, not some other paper. I mean, please.
But this is what's been out there.
I'm not interested in what other people.
We see stuff like this.
Okay. Complete and utter nonsense and denial, essentially, of what he said. Complete denial of what he said, which, again, is nonsense. Here's a little bit more. Remember this guy's name. He is Jim Devine.
So your excuse apparently is other people have done it. That's not an excuse. I'm here to ask you about something that you wrote, and why don't you explain it? Why did you write hunt Republicans?
For too long, Republicans in this country have failed to distinguish the differences between politics and war. And a lot of Democrats...
I'd love to know some examples of that.
...have failed to see the similarities. So you guys either have to tone down the rhetoric or we have to step up.
You have to share the rhetoric.
And I don't think there's anything...
Hunt
Republicans.
There's nothing wrong with that?
Sarah Palin put the crosshairs on Congress. I'm just saying hunt Republicans instead of Democrats.
First of all, Sarah Palin didn't do that. A group affiliated with her did. And it's a difference between a metaphor and actually suggesting affirmatively go hunt Republicans after Republicans have just been shot.
There is a difference between a strategic targeting of districts with regard to the vote, with regard to Congress, and go hunt Republicans. But this guy wasn't done.
What I'm making the point is that after year after year after year of hearing the same kind of violent rhetoric from the right, the left has every reason to come forward and stand up. What I've learned in life is that when you're confronted with bullies, you have to fight fire with fire. You have to stand up to them.
Okay, who have the bullies been? I want to know who the bullies have been. Democrats had the White House for 8 years, one House of Congress. Who are the bullies here? Here's a little bit more. This guy and when he talks about the Republican agenda, and I heard this also on from Morning Joy, a show on MSNBC. Joy Reid is a host of it, and because Republicans want to repeal health care, or maybe some Republicans disagree with gay marriage, that is some sort of act of violence rather than just a political decision.
So your point is that Republicans, I guess this is your point, are advocating violence, and you're proving this by holding up a poster from 5 years ago. And because they are, you say now Democrats should? Like, what is your point? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that Democrats have to be more aggressive in the face of political issues, in the face of the opposition. We have members of people. One of the persons who was on that field who spoke about how terrifying it was,
what does that mean?
Was Senator Rand Paul. Senator Rand Paul retweeted something from Andrew Napolitano that said the reason we have a Second Amendment is not so people can hunt deer, it's so that they could shoot at a tyrannical government.
Okay, yeah, that's true. That is true. From a government that would attempt to become tyrannical, attempt to become dictatorial, attempt to use military force against its people. That's why we have the Second Amendment. There's nothing wrong with that.
So what's your point? That
my
he deserved
point,
it?
Tucker, is
that
very
what you're
simply,
saying?
no, absolutely not. But my point is that when you put up obstacles to people voting, when you secretly plot and...
Okay, they don't put up obstacles to people voting. The only thing Republicans are in favor of is voter ID. The same thing that you need if you want to rent a movie, which most of you don't rent movies anymore. But you need a host of ID for a variety of reasons. There's nothing wrong with asking a person their identity so they can't steal a vote.
In the Senate to repeal health care that's keeping...
Okay, so you repeal... We want to repeal Obamacare, which is broken, which has cost a lot of people a lot of money, which is underperforming. That somehow is somebody who would believe that a threat of violence against them is okay.
50,000 Americans alive, and you're otherwise erecting barriers to the democratic process where we have elections where the people that get the most votes don't win.
That you should be shot?
What happens is, no.
That's what the Electoral College is for, you doofus.
But that is tyrannical government.
No, it's not. It just happens to disagree with your political ideology. That's it. To say, and I heard the same thing echoed the other day on a Joy Reid show. The same thing. Because you disagree with those things, that is being tyrannical. Okay? That is what they call on campus a threat. Just because they disagree with you. The same thing goes with speech that some college campuses deem a threat because it doesn't go along with the popular belief on campus or liberal belief on campus. I'll get some audio from Evergreen State. Just amazing stuff. There's a short special on HBO, and when you hear the audio, you're not going to believe it. But one more cut from this interview.
What is your point?
My point is enough is enough.
So,
if it's
so it's time to take up arms?
No, it is not about taking up arms. It is about...
then how do you hunt Republicans? What, I get bow and arrow? Right? Spear?
Coming together and fighting back.
Fighting back how?
Politically. Peacefully.
Then what is this about?
Then why say hunting?
Hunting and cheer. You know what? You're an unbalanced person, and I have to say it's distressing that more Democrats haven't disavowed you.
Yeah.
Well,
I hope
you know
they
what?
will.
I'm perfectly balanced.
Okay, I don't think you're very balanced. I think you're slightly unhinged. Oh man. Like I said, I hoped that it would bring the best out in us. But some people apparently didn't work. It didn't work. So I've been talking to you about Evergreen State, a little school in Washington, where a group of students every year do a thing called the Day of Absence. And they ask students of color and faculty of color to leave the campus, and you're supposed to see the impact of not having people of color there. And that's fine, right? This year, they wanted all the white people to go. One professor said, no, I'm not going to do it. Brett Weinstein, or Weinstein, I should say. And he refused to do it, and he has been threatened. He's had to leave the campus. There have been people there demanding he be fired. And when you hear some of these sound bites from this, you're going to not believe it, because right now the children, and I refer to college students as children because they are children. They are perfectly able to, vote, join the military, drink when they turn 21, but they're not adults. They're not adults. They don't act like adults. And it's time for the adults to say, get your asses to your classes, or you're done, or you're out of here. All right? We have seen Ann Coulter kept off campus. We have seen Milo Yiannopoulos kept off of Berkeley. We have seen the University of Missouri debacle. We've got dozens of universities around the country where free speech is simply not allowed, where safe spaces are offered for students who can't handle to hear an opposing viewpoint. Michael Moynihan, Vice News, got together with HBO. Here's some sound bites from Evergreen State and why I believe this is a turning point for freedom of speech in the country on campus.
Last month, Evergreen State College in Washington went crazy when a professor of evolutionary biology named Brett Weinstein objected to a day of absence when white students and faculty were asked to voluntarily leave campus. Weinstein branded it a form of racial segregation.
I think it would backfire, to be quite honest, because if all the white people leave, I think it would show the impact of not having white people, and because there are more white people, I think it would be a little more impactful.
A group of student protesters called him a racist. The confrontation incited further protests, debates over free speech, and claims of systemic racism on campus. And things haven't calmed down. Tomorrow, Evergreen will hold its graduation at an off-campus location 40 miles away.
Now, this is a small group of students, and they've resorted, actually, and I believe this, because there have been death threats on campus from off-campus, supposedly, threats of violence against students, and they are being made by these students, by these leftist students. That's what's going on. Because right now there are leftist students who are carrying baseball bats around campus for self-defense. What it is there for is intimidation. They want to intimidate those who would oppose this day of absence and the beliefs of these groups. A little more from this special on HBO.
Would you like to hear the answer or not?
No!
Okay.
This is the video viewed by millions that put Evergreen State and Weinstein in the national spotlight.
This is not a discussion. You have lost that one.
This is not a discussion. You've lost that one.
Yeah, you've lost that one.
So what are they doing here if they don't want to talk to you?
Well, this is part and parcel of their central mode. They're just simply shutting down somebody that they don't want to hear from.
Yep.
I am not interested in debate. I am interested only in dialectic, which does mean I listen to you.
This has got to be tough for Brett Weinstein or Stein, because he is a progressive. I don't like using the word progressive. He's a liberal. I don't like the hijacking of words. Progressive means something completely different. It can't be owned by one side or the other. Progressive is a mindset. Progressive is a thought process. It is not a political ideology.
And you listen to me.
A political ideology that represents one side.
Weinstein has taught at Evergreen State for 14 years. He describes himself as deeply progressive, but has been denounced as a racist tool of the alt-right by some students and faculty.
What about the alt-left? Isn't there an alt-left? I think this is the alt-left at work. Am I right? Yeah, Evergreen State is claiming, and where did alt-right come from, by the way? Here's a guy who is a progressive leftist, granola-crunching, Birkenstock-wearing hippie from, my generation, I guess. He's about my age. Hippies aren't, they're baby boomers. But anyway, you know what I'm saying? And they're calling him the worst of the worst, a member of the alt-right.
Weinstein objected to the day of absence in a formal protest email to colleagues, arguing that, quote, one's right to speak or to be must never be based on skin color. Calls for his resignation followed.
Here's where the movement is going. There is an ability to discriminate if your skin is a color, and that's white, right? That's just the way it is. I'm stating the truth. Right now, white privilege has become white supremacy. There is supposedly a white supremacy march. People are being labeled things that they aren't. White supremacists, alt-right, those are things that Brett Weinstein, this is the Salem witch trials on campus. This is claiming someone is something that they are not. And when they protest, shouting them down. The only reason on campus that the word racist is used now is when somebody is losing an argument.
Virtue of the way they constructed this, you were making a statement by being on campus that you were not an ally. And I feel like I am an ally to people of color in their attempt to gain equity.
Do you have any sense at this point of...
It's really backfired on you, hasn't it, buddy? This political correctness that you've been a part of is all fine and dandy until you become a victim of it.
Why they want you to resign?
Well, they think that I'm a racist. Because if you stand...
No, they don't think you're a racist. They're calling you a racist to shut you up.
Against one of these things because you think it's ill-considered that you will be branded as a racist.
Witch! Witch! He's a witch! Burn him at the stake. That's what's going on here. Here's one of the snowflakes, the powerless little snowflakes that the president of the university should say. Get your ass to your class. If you have a baseball on campus, you will be removed. This will go on your academic record permanently, and you are no longer a student at Evergreen State.
We just wanted to be like, until you're accountable for these actions, you don't get to teach students at Evergreen. You don't get to spread this problematic rhetoric and instill it in students.
Again, problematic rhetoric is when you disagree.
Yes, you're disrupting my class.
So at this point, we would like Brett to be fired, but that isn't happening.
And we would like you to be removed from school. You should have been spanked as a child.
Administration is refusing to take action. They're choosing to protect this white cis male professor over its students.
It's white cis male professor. And there's the seed right there, folks. There's the seed. White cis male. You are the enemy. This is getting dangerous. I've got a kid who's getting ready to go to college in a year. This has to stop. Schools have to lose funding. Students have to be booted. That's it. And this is not about kicking out an opposing viewpoint. This is about kicking out a movement that is dangerous, not only to free speech, but also to physical well-being. The president of Evergreen State is a doofus. He is named George Bridges. He is a highly educated moron. He was held hostage in the library by these small band of radical leftists, intolerant students. And he went along with it to the tune of that he needed to go to the bathroom, and they said that he would need an escort. This is in the library.
It's the one point on which the protesters and Weinstein agree. Evergreen's embattled president, George Bridges, has mishandled the crisis.
I think their concerns are legitimate. They're articulating ideas that have to do with race, ethnicity, power, privilege, and we're taking a look at them.
That's my problem, George. You keep doing these little hand movements.
They had a problem with the president gesticulating when he was talking. That was some sort of a microaggression.
Come through.
People were criticizing you for using hand gestures.
Absolutely, they were. And you know,
that seems crazy to people from the outside of Evergreen.
It may, but it's noise.
But the noise has been effective.
So you don't need to watch that door, watch all the doors, watch the windows. You need to keep eyes on that.
You say to that kid saying, lock all the windows, lock all the doors, you are under arrest. You bring in campus security, you bring in university police, and you have that person arrested. This is involuntary entrapment.
And somebody needs to go in that room real quick to make sure that there's no way in that room.
I mean, essentially sounded like you're being held hostage there. If you were going to go to the bathroom, you had to go with 2 escorts. Is that true?
That's what the students felt was true. I was going to go to the bathroom.
What do you mean, the students?
Well, that's what they said. If you want to go to the bathroom, I was going to go to the bathroom regardless. And
I was going to go anyway. I was going to. But, I needed two students to and I got a dog barking in the background. 2 students to take me to the bathroom, but I was going to go, but I just decided not to.
And escort me. I felt very
Why?
safe there. Why what?
Why did they want to escort you to the bathroom?
I don't know.
Did you ask them?
No, of course not.
Did you ask them? No, of course not. The president said, of course not. I wouldn't ask them why they're holding me hostage here. Are you insane? Are you nuts? Here's a little bit more of this academic moron. And by the way, what happened at the University of Missouri should happen to this guy. The president and the chancellor of the university booted when they capitulated to the anti-racism, even though there wasn't any in Missouri, protesters.
A student told me that you're a white supremacist.
I'm assuming that students have said lots of things about me. I don't believe I am. I'm
You
a
don't
white
believe
person.
you are, but
You don't believe that you are a white supremacist. If you don't know that you're not a white supremacist, that's a problem.
Except that you might be.
No. Well, it depends on what you mean by a white supremacist.
This is unbelievable. This man is so twisted in his thought process that he circled back on himself, that he can't think clearly anymore.
What does that mean? I'm a white person in a position of privilege.
Okay. I guess that's part of the confusion for me is the precision of language seems to be lost in a lot of this conversation.
It is.
How is he? Okay, a position of privilege. I believe that he had to go through a lot of academia. He had to work his way up to being the president of the university. There are a few people who do that. I question how he did it because he's an idiot. Here's that same snowflake from a moment ago talking about how this sort of speech needs to be weeded out. Listen to this and how dangerous it is.
I don't care what happens to Brett anymore. He can go and be racist and be a piece of wherever he wants to do that. Hopefully, long term, we can just weed out people like Brett.
So, weed out people like Brett. That, to me, sounds very Nazistic. This is anarchistic. Okay? This is fascism. And these kids and other university students who are doing the same sort of thing are claiming that they're the Antifa. Honestly, it's breathtaking. And here's who they need to weed out. They need to weed out people like George Bridges, who cannot handle students doing this, who are in college. And when did college just become, and listen, I'm all about freedom of thought, exploring intellectually and all this. College also became a way to better yourself as a human being, learn, and ultimately get out into the workforce and make a living for the rest of your life. That's what the core of it is all about. Freedom of expression is great and all that, but right now, this has become secondary to educating students at universities like this. It's just the way it is. Today in Washington, D.C., the Senate is having hearings on free speech on campus. And I seriously, seriously hope that they do something about this. Not about limiting one side or the other, but about saying what behavior is acceptable and what is not on university campuses. And if leaders cannot govern the students and get them to their classes and have them graduate with a useful degree and useful knowledge, then those academics need to be removed from academia and from leadership. It's too nuts. It's just too nuts. I want to thank our sponsors today. Again, Dr. Alex Nelson, fountainoflifecairo.com, fountainoflifecairo.com. I'll tell you, I have learned so much about Cairo over the past few years, whether it be pinched nerves, whether it be one time I had pain in my chest and arm. I thought I was having a heart attack. Turned out to be a compressed nerve in my neck. Cairo fixed it. Dr. Alex Nelson can fix you. If you are a veteran or a veteran's family member, $30 adjustments. Fountainoflifecairo.com, 816-741-4711, 816-741-4711. Or our other sponsor, don't forget them. If you're looking for residential or commercial mower, you want that zero-turn radius, do not get one that's chained up outside of a big box hardware store. Go to Grass Monsters KC 5520, Raytown Road, Raytown Mo. Check out the Dixie Choppers. Check out the Raptors. They are magnificent. They'll even let you take one for a test drive. Thanks for watching me today, guys. Make sure to download the show. It's available on iTunes at The Rob Carson Show. It is also now on iHeartRadio at The Rob Carson Show. I'm on Facebook at Rob Carson Show, and I'm on Twitter at Rob Carson. A lot to digest. All right. Hey, God bless you guys. Have a great one, and we will see you back here soon.
Thanks for listening to The Rob Carson Show. Friend him on Facebook at Carson Show, on Twitter at Rob Carson, and on Instagram... I think Facebook and Twitter are enough for now. We'll see you soon.